Welcome back, Dota 2 fans. Game 3 decider. Winner faces Evil Geniuses in the semifinals. compLexity versus the Dire. compLexity taking a commanding victory in Game 2. Dire looking pretty sharp in Game 1 as well. We'll see if they can bounce back mentally in this third game. MRP, Franz here to chronicle the action, and Jakiro going to be the opening for PPD.
Yeah, we've seen this Jakiro hero pop up every now and then. I think he's picked because he's kind of hard to deal with as a lane support. He's quite tanky. He has 2 attack slows in Liquid Fire and his dual breath, so quite a difficult hero to kill. Very good at zoning out enemy heroes. compLexity, they pick up a Rubik. I think one of the best things about the Rubik hero is that he has an instant initiation, so he's pretty good at setting up kills in the early and mid game. And he also has a lot of utility through his ultimates, so we'll see how that goes for compLexity.
So same bans as we've seen pretty much all day, aside from the Earthshaker.
Yep, Wisp and Earthshaker, 2 very good bans. I think Z-Freak was quite great on the Earthshaker last game. It did a lot of work for them, set up a lot of kills, and through those early kills, compLexity was really able to snowball into the victory that they achieved. So, and compLexity, they decide to pick up the Bloodseeker this game. It didn't quite work out for CCNC last game. I think part of that was just a little bit of a misplay in the early game. I think giving up those 3 kills definitely hurt him a lot and made him unable to come back into the mid game, especially when you are up against a hero like Lone Druid and Puck. Those 2 heroes are quite difficult to catch in the first place, and if your team isn't in a position to sort of pile up on top of those 2 heroes, then there's really nothing that the enemy has to be afraid of when you rupture them. So
yeah, I think Chessie and
Limp.
Wasn't Kyle. No, it was Chessie and Z-Freak in the mid lane. They did a good job to body him under the tower. I mean, I feel like in the side lanes, Bloodseeker has a lot more room to play with as far as creep aggro goes and dragging the creeps to a safe place to be able to sustain himself in lane, but they just kind of constantly pressured CCNC. As you mentioned, he kind of spiraled downwards after the few deaths, but wasn't able to stay in lane as long as you would hope when you pick a Bloodseeker on paper, and often we see them in the safe lane, kind of left alone to their own devices, allowing greedy supports, allowing the roam, but in the mid lane, a little bit of a different story. So I guess a good matchup with the Lone Druid there, but also the presence of Z-Freak there for a lot of the early game really hurt him.
Yep. PPD picks up Nature's Prophet, probably being played by Zai. Nature's Prophet is a very strong laner. He can always trade hits quite well with the treants and with his own auto attacks, and so that makes him quite a solid offlane pick. There's really not a lot of counters to him in the lane or in the mid game in general. You need to be able to counteract his split pushing and be able to catch him, and there's just really that's really more of a lineup thing. It's not something you can counter with a particular hero. So we'll see how compLexity respond with that. Having a Nature's Prophet and a Jakiro as well opens up the potential for the Dire to go for a more push-oriented lineup, or at least in the early game get a lot of tower damage. You have the Liquid Fire, you have the treants, and then you also have 3 more picks that we haven't seen yet, so you can even combine more building damage there. So the Dire, they have a lot of options they can take, but the number one thing is that they make sure that their heroes don't suffer that much against Bloodseeker. So making sure they actually have lockdown for the Bloodseeker, so he can't run around the fights full turbo, and making sure that their heroes don't get screwed by rupture too much, like heroes like ranged heroes or heroes that don't have to rely on kiting or running around too much.
Prophet certainly kind of fits the bill. Can TP in and then just scroll TP out if he gets blood righted. He's also very good against the Bloodseeker, and the Bloodseeker doesn't have all that much support nearby. So part of the merits of the Bloodseeker pick is that he kind of just holds down the safe lane on his own, but against a Prophet, potentially one with phase boots a little bit into the game, they're definitely going to garner the attention of the supports from compLexity. Maybe that allows them to gain. We'll see what direction Kyle goes in the draft. He's going to pick up his trusty Dazzle here, so very defensive kind of utility-based support duo in the pick Dazzle.
Yeah, Dazzle's just a really solid position 5 hero. He does pretty well in lane most of the time. He's actually quite decent against Nature's Prophet because you have the heal bump to help deal with the treants. And the Dire, actually, I should note, they banned Spearbreaker and Batrider, which are heroes that kind of synergize well with Bloodseeker for going for those solo pickoffs on the map. And the Dire, they pick up Earth Spirit as their sort of position 4, look for pickoffs hero, potentially help the Nature's Prophet top deal with that lane, because Nature's Prophet already naturally does a ton of damage. So then when you add in an Earth Spirit to help roll in, there's a lot of kill potential that compLexity have to be aware of. But neither team has really given out too much information with their picks so far, just because they're still missing 2 of their cores, and their cores so far are pretty. I can't really call them generic, but they're pretty like standard, nothing too fancy. And with that, compLexity sort of says, hey, maybe we're gonna go for this kind of like not really push, but like group up kind of lineup where you open up with the Rupture, and then you have this super tanky Underlord being healed by the Dazzle. And the Dire, they sort of have to respond by picking either something that lanes well against the Underlord to shut him down, or something that can help them really do damage to the Underlord and Bloodseeker and really end these fights decisively before the whole like tankiness of the Underlord and the healing from the Dazzle kick in.
Slight lack in CC, I would say, for complexity. I mean, the root can certainly do that. Bit of malice is what I'm saying. But aside from that, just the telekinesis at their disposal. Kind of looking at Ursa, you talked about the 1v1 lane matchups. Maybe Bloodseeker slightly better, but or Lifestealer, I should say. But Lifestealer doesn't fare all that well against Rupture.
Yeah, and they kind of need something with a lot of burst damage, in my opinion, just because it works better against the Dazzle lineup if you don't have to worry about the Grave, like the fight's just over in an instant kind of thing. But the Dire, they pick up Sniper.
You mentioned yesterday about Shrapnel being better weight. Part of the game plan that you assume with an Underlord is to sit him under your buildings and constantly right click away from them. So Shrapnel potentially deters him from doing so.
Yep, and it also gives them sort of a mechanism that that helps deal with the Bloodseeker, because if the Sniper gets ruptured and the Dire lineup is there to protect him, then the Sniper can still attack while being ruptured. You can use a Shrapnel to prevent the tower pushing potential from compLexity. Yeah, Shrapnel is like one of the best ways to defend towers, just because it's so long range and it's so effective at clearing waves, and it's really annoying to fight into. Like the compLexity team doesn't want to like run through a Shrapnel to get into the Dire lineup, so pretty neat pickup there. Not something we see all too often, especially with all of the sort of standard mid heroes in the pool, like Puck, Lina, Templar Assassin, all that stuff. Still there, but I can dig it.
AA ban coming out from Spindlemelt. Already a decent amount of global presence with the Spirit, the potential profit that it last.
I should also mention that Earth Spirit plus Sniper have a lot of kill potential on mid, just because there's so much slow between the 2 of those heroes. So you open up with the Shrapnel, Earth Spirit rolls in, and that's pretty much almost a guaranteed kill. So we'll see if any of that happens, because whenever I look at a roaming hero like Earth Spirit or Tusk or Earthshaker, I always look at what kind of combinations they have with the other lanes to help look for kills. So like in this game, Earth Spirit can accomplish a lot just from moving between the Sniper's lane and the Nature's Prophet lane, just because these 2 heroes have such high damage outputs that they can probably look for potential kills. And then when you have a lane like Void and Shakiro that probably are capable of zoning if the Underlord is alone, the Dire should do pretty well in their lanes.
Alrighty, so we get the Limp Storm Spirit to come out in the end. It's definitely notorious for its weakness early in lane, but since the Bloodseeker is rather self-sufficient, the Underlord, kind of a hero in the same vein, they should be able to support Limp enough in this early going to keep him up. We do get to throw it back, though, to Secret 2.0 and see some Zai Nature's Prophet. That'll be exciting. Pycat going to pick up his Void here in the looks a little better than his Wraith King does.
Yep. The Storm Spirit's sort of a solution to the sniper as well. I mean, I can kind of see why the Dire picked Wraith King, because Wraith King does have the, I think it's like the 400-500% crit to the bear, but in that game, he couldn't really afford to hit the bear. I think the only situation where the Wraith King pick works is if they were so strong that compLexity couldn't fight into their lineup, just because the Wraith King is a supernaturally naturally a super tanky hero. You have to kill him twice and stuff, but it didn't really work out for them last game. This game, though, the Dire, they have a completely different lineup, and it should be a much different game.
Yeah, CCNC definitely feels like he'll be a little bit more comfortable with the sniper matchup.
They also definitely have a lot more kill potential in the lanes this game. Like Misery, he was playing the Spirit Breaker last game, but there's really no easy lane for him to kill. Like the bottom lane was a Puck, and it was Zai on the Bat Rider, right? So like Bat Rider plus Spirit Breaker can't really kill the Puck if the Puck just orbs out. The Puck has to make like a mistake to die in that lane, and then same goes with the Lone Druid, right? Like if Bloodseeker Spirit Breaker goes on the Lone Druid, they get Savage Forward, ganks over, right? But this game they have Sniper and Nature's Prophet against Bloodseeker and Storm, so Earth Spirit has a lot of potential kills. He just has to look out for them, and compLexity have to sort of react to those ganks. But Rubik and Dazzle perfectly capable at dealing with an Earth Spirit. We'll see how the early game goes this game. And
if we ever load,
paused, or?
It must be at this point.
Yeah, it's paused. I can see it in the chat. And we are going.
We're off.
I hope. There we go.
Right. We made it. Game 3, decider. Winner faces Evil Geniuses in the semifinals. MRP Franz.
Who do they go off against if they win this?
EG.
EG. Oh. That will be a match.
We had two very hype matches today. Vega versus Navi, and now compLexity versus the Dire. But both of them going on to face, what are widely considered top 3-4 teams in the world. Aside from Liquid and Newbie in EG and Virtus Pro.
A little bit of an not odd, but different laning configuration here. So I think it's going to be a Bloodseeker top with the Rubik and Dazzle, and it will be Underlord solo bottom against the Nature's Prophet. I feel like the Underlord will be fine in that lane, especially since he started with a poor man's shield. So as long as he keeps his health up, he'll be fine. I imagine between level 3 and 5, there might be kill potential on the Underlord, but in a 1v1, he'll be okay. I think.
I'm trying to mull over whether or not going aggressive opens up the mid lane for the Earth Spirit more so, or if it drags his attention mostly in the top lane. But it feels like Void with a Jakiro. You mentioned all the attacks though and how underrated that is in the early going. Having Time Walk, yeah, it's on a big cooldown early on, but it feels like they should be sufficient enough to stand their ground in lane. So we'll see what openings Misery can find under the cover of smoke with PPD.
The Dire is doing what people call the visit. So you stand on this high ground above the bouncy rune, and then when Limp walks up, they just hit him and do like 500 damage. Or kill him.
Visit. They actually drop him here. Gets the bounty rune up to the high ground. Of course, no shrine this early in the game, and the second dual breath will ensure his death. Misery Fairy fires up to ensure he survives. He can get down to low ground and roll away if he so pleases. PPD, he's actually just gonna float his way back to safety.
A bit of a lane swap happening. So they have Zayag going top, and then they have Pycat going bottom on the Void. So I think this is the lane matchup they want. They want the Void in like the easier lane, just because going up against a Bloodseeker and Dazzle is a little bit difficult. And then by walking to the lanes for their lane swap, they ensure a situation where if the Bloodseeker decides to TP bottom, Pycat has his TP, and then they have the lane for Pycat for at least a minute. That was a little bit of a cool gank from PPD and Misery at the bouncy rune. I think it's one of the imbalances on the map actually, because on Radiant when you get that bounty rune you have to walk up a hill, whereas Dire don't have to walk up a hill at all. So it's only possible on that kind of gank is only possible as the Dire. So great kill will help CCNC in this lane.
Limp, though, still doing great CS-wise thus far in the mid lane. Gonna look to eclipse that level 3 mark shortly, but CC did have some time early on. Misery hanging around this mid lane. Zai pretty much zoned out top.
Moose taking quite a bit of damage in the bottom lane, actually. So is Pycat.
Pycat has the time walk, however, and can jump forward now, looking for the kill. Does he pincer off Moo? He will not. Does not get the bash either, but the second dual breath from PPD again will secure a kill for his squad. 2-0 for the Dire side. Meanwhile, over by the rune, Zai is going to pick up a haste rune, and now Misery rotating through as well. 3 seconds until a rolling boulder. No shrine available. They're TPing into the mid lane with the dazzle, but Z-Freak in trouble here as they slow him up, and a couple more right clicks bring him down. Zai using the rest of the haste, the residual duration, to get himself back up to lane. So with that second level in the Prophet, he will have an impact across the map. PBD clarity up, looking for this Underlord again, but it looks like they'll anticipate this with the Rubik TPO. Misery inbound again this time for the first time to the bottom lane.
So Moo's got 2 points in the aura now, as well as a poor man shield, so he's going to be quite tanky, but not tanky enough apparently. He's starting to go down.
Yeah, pincered in on the tree. Z-Freak nearby. The boulder smash flies through the telekinesis, keeping Pycat back. And the liquid fire, only level 1. Pycat going to continue to chase forward. Oh, needed the right click, does not get it, as Z-Freak may have been able to block him off in the trees. But still, that's Moo, who's, you know, sitting on 4 tangos and still has to base at this point. Meanwhile, though, Bloodseeker for compLexity.
This is where Zai's like, who's feeding this Bloodseeker damage and move speed? I'm pretty sure that's how that kill occurred anyway, so. No. Apparently Moo was tanky enough, so barely surviving there. CCNC and 3 heroes mid.
Zai, beautiful boulder smash from Misery, and Zai with his free trip to the base jumps in towards mid and contributes on a kill on Limp. The second time he drops in the game. This one certainly a lot more influential than his first one out of minute 0.
Yeah, that gives the Dire sort of a small lead going into the 4-minute mark, but nothing substantial. I think where they are winning is, oh, they're not even winning an EXP, so the game's fairly even at the moment. I think part of that is that solo kill on Zai with Chessie, so Chessie's sort of the hero that's doing the best on the map for compLexity right now. We'll see if he tries to make a move at level 6. Which he should have in a minute or 2.
Doing excellent considering being in the off lane. And soon to eclipse that all-important level 6 milestone, perhaps even before the sniper out of the mid lane. So making great pace here is this Bloodseeker all by his lonesome. No stacks prepared just yet. Or they've already been farmed for Limp.
Limp's sort of been jungling for a while on Storm. I think he's kind of scared of the rotations from the Dire. So I feel like Chessie's going to be required to help free up some space for the Storm Spirit, especially since the Storm really doesn't want to be in the lane right now. You can see there's 3 heroes set up mid getting ready to gank this Storm Spirit.
TP in from the Prophet. They're going to find Swindles. He does have a point in the grave, so not an easy kill by any right. They will commit for it, though. They get the roll through. Nice body blocks from Zai as well. And as the grave expires, he will find the kill. And this will transition into some damage on the tower with the siege creep wave. It's amazing to see, you know, in this kind of siege creep meta, as you called it yesterday, the timings of the ganks around the first siege creep wave. So often synced up by these tier 1 teams. And mid lane, I'm sure I'm going to get flamed in Twitch chat for calling the Dire tier 1. But anyways. PPD going for the TP out. Boulder smash from Misery, just enough to help his support partner make it back to base.
I mean, it's just a really smart thing to do to play around the siege creep. They do so much damage to the tower, and towers are so important. I mean, they've been so important for a few years now, especially when you have a lineup like the Dire's where you have so much pick-off potential with the Earth Spirit. You can have the Sniper and the Nature's Prophet come in from long distances, so you know, the easier it is for
Zai.
Or snipe from Zai, yeah. I mean, the easier it is to shut down this storm, the easier you're gonna have a game or a win.
Misery in trouble, Blood Rage up mid lane. Limp though can't get the kill. Walks through shrapnel, accepts his fate. Swindles, no grave. He's gonna fall as well. Double kill for CCNC. A lot better start here.
Pycat doesn't really have a way out of this. Bash.
Gonna fight, needs another bash. CCNC driving through. Actually, the Blood Rage expired just before Chessie gets the kill. CCNC does not have a shrapnel here for 9 seconds. So will not be able to finish off Chessie, although that could have been very unfortunate for the Bloodseeker not getting the lifesteal on the back end of that one. But nevertheless, once again, still remaining to be the silver lining here for compLexity in the early game is Chessie's Bloodseeker doing very well. They are looking to gank him though, and he's overstayed his welcome in this lane. Boulder Smash comes through. The Treants are there as well. They'll pretty much all dodge the Blood, right? And now coming through, Misery caught out in no man's land. I mean, well worth the trade as he gets the silence though off onto Kyle. Assassinate flying through. Boom. Later, Dazzle. Zai has the phase boots. Moo does not have a point in the Pit of Malice yet, so like the Dire will be able to make it back to safety.
Pycat looks like he's setting up for a kill on the storm, but Limp sort of aware. I think a ward spotted him moving, so he's gonna back up to the fountain.
BBD rotating in mid lane as well. Dazzle showing for Swindles. And CCNC rotating down. Everyone kind of looking to occupy this middle lane for the Dire here, as the tower is within kill range.
This tower is super important because it helps open up potential ganks on the storm. So it kind of...
Oh, jump forward, Chronosphere. They're going to look to find the Dazzle, and Assassinate will finish him off. Dominating streak for CCNC. More importantly, going to facilitate the removal of this mid lane tower. In the meantime, though, compLexity don't get nothing out of it. They do get that top lane tier 1 as they TP in bottom looking to defend. Moo, not the healthiest at this juncture, but Misery be able to back to safety.
Are setting up bottom though.
CCNC even rotating in for this one. The only hero they're missing, Pycat in the top lane, who hasn't shown just yet, I believe, and will now.
His Chronosphere's down, so there's not much he can contribute to this fight. I think this is more of Dire posturing themselves bottom just to see if compLexity will make a rotation or see if they can force anyone from compLexity down here. But
not sure if they caught a glimpse of the Dazzle, but they should have in this area, and they will make their way downhill now. BPD in the cover of fog, looking for him, won't find him yet. And now compLexities have assumed the high ground, so gets a little bit difficult here for the Dire to continue pushing forward.
CCNC has 2 waves he can farm here, and Pycat also just wants to farm while his Chronosphere's on cooldown. So I don't imagine the Dire are actually looking to make anything happen here. They're just trying to see how compLexity react, or at least force them to react so they don't lose this bottom tier 1.
Treads Dragonlance Aquila up for CCNC with the full magic wand and base as well, working on a Maelstrom. Assuming top position as far as net worth goes. Zai didn't have the greatest early game, but has his essentials on the Prophet. Looking into the Midas actually here. This is not the most common build. We often see kind of the more skirmish-oriented Prophets recently, but he'll opt to scale here.
It helps him catch up, and I think Zai will be super important this game if he gets an Orchid and a... Oh, I missed the kill.
Like just a shrapnel.
Kill, apparently. Rupture up top, maybe?
Jumping forward for Chessie. They've got 4 heroes nearby. Pycat has a chrono in just a second. He's going to rupture the void, and they will spend their chrono here. Well worth it if they can find this kill. Dark Rift in, but it's all by his lonesome. Just the Underlord. Chessie, though, looking to still stand strong. Pycat trying to finish off this Bloodseeker. They won't be able... Oh, the Thirst Strength allows them to take out 2 heroes. Now they'll get a 3rd. Double kill for Moo. And Chessie just surviving far too long there. No Magnetize used by Misery. I'm not sure if he just hit that level 6 mark, but it looks like he's had it. Maybe a bit of an oversight on his part to withhold that.
Down
now,
bottom.
Yeah, bot lane, Misery looking for something.
That tier 1 is still bottom, so I think the Dire are like respecting a potential counter initiation again, like we saw top, and that was just a great great counter initiation from Mu, but also the Bloodseeker being so dang tanky. I mean, PBD didn't have his ultimate yet, so there wasn't a lot of damage going into that Chrono, just auto attacks. And CCNC was still in the mid lane, so great turnaround from compLexity there. Buys a little bit of time for their Storm Spirit, who's been quite behind for a while, and you know, Storm Spirit's like the main way that compLexity deal with snipers, so they need him in like working order for the mid game and late game.
Moo's having a good time, however, on the Underlord after that double kill top lane. He's getting ever the more difficult to bring down. He's got a buckler in his stash, but he's got the Hood of Defiance on his person. And that'll allow him to just kind of stand under these structures. Bait big spells to be thrown his way. And perhaps allow Jesse and maybe finally Limp to counter-initiate into these fights. Dire Vision on the high ground may have caught a glimpse there of one of these compLexity heroes, Chessie and Swindles, hanging around.
CCNC setting up bottom. We haven't really seen him make a rotation like this yet, so I think Dire are planning to take a big team fight in the bottom lane while they have Zai in the top lane who can TP in a hurry.
CCNC going to finish off the wave. Dark Rift is available for the Underlord if they choose to bring him in. For now, Chessie will drag the wave away from the tower. Of course, no backdoor protection because this is a T1, so they will just continue to beat into it. Underlord, meanwhile, in the top lane, slicing slowly into the tier 2. Zai, though, could be in a bit of peril here. If he does not have a ward.
I think Zai's aware that there's just a lot of heroes missing, and
mass TPs into bottom lane. Rupture goes out onto CCNC. Can he get out in time? Limp jumps forward. Macropyre there. And CCNC just going to walk off most of this Rupture. Salva has a shrine. There's even a regen rune, actually, in the river.
That was a good gank dodge by CCNC there. And they
over by the rune, they do find the Storm Spirit. They'll be able to silence him momentarily. They get the Magnetize off, and they'll force him to use pretty much his entire mana pool to get out of this one. D-Freak will come through and steal the Wrath of Nature. Pretty good spell to grab. Meanwhile, bottom lane, Moo, maybe a little bit far forward now that they've seen the rest of the lineup of compLexity. And they will find a big kill on the tanky Underlord. 3 times kill streak going the way of CCNC there. And that'll be 350 gold in his pocket.
I mean, there's really not a lot much going on at the moment. I think both teams are respecting their opponents, and so I think
Misery's gonna die. Go on.
After the Rupture was missed, I think the Dire probably felt like there was an opening to make something happen there. They tried to kill the Storm, didn't work, but at least they got Moo on the Underlord, and I think the Dire probably feel like they have to apply some pressure on compLexity just because the enemy has
in trouble. Well, he gets the Dark Rift off and should be just fine to make it out bottom lane.
They probably feel like they have to apply as much pressure as possible before Limp comes online on that Storm Spirit, so you can see them trying to push this tower, but at the same time, they're kind of afraid of getting caught out of position just because Rupture is so good at punishing that, so. No, really no 5-manning occurring at the moment. Both teams are trying to get their items up, but up top.
Oh, they are going to beautifully overlap their spells into the Blood Right, and instantly into the TP out, though, will go Pycat. Good decisive move from him there. Will keep him safe. Misery rolling up to the opposite side.
They're going to try to go for a kill on that.
Again, Moo going to get caught with a double breath. They have the dual breath, excuse me. They have the Sprout as well. Macropyre is there. He'll be able to walk out of it, though, and does have the Hood of Defiance. And now Z-Freak with a stolen time walk zips forward. Still, though, Telekinesis on cooldown. And now CCNC rotating through. Z-Freak in a lot of trouble. He's going to be dropped down. And they should be able to chase out Moo as well. Tries to fog through the trees. Limp, though, on the backline's looking for Zai. He sprouts himself up, but a zip forward, he'll find the Nature's Prophet. Now the Grave is there to save the Underlord momentarily, at least. Limp taking a lot of damage, and they don't have the vision to assassinate him. Moo is going to be able to make it out as well, but Chessie ends up dropping top lane. It looks like the duo of Pycat and Misery able to bring him down. Yep, Chronosphere expended, magnetized there as well. So Misery able to clean up the Bloodseeker. And with all these heroes limping back to base, a little bit of liquid fire damage alongside the siege creep. We'll get some good work done on this tier 2 bottom lane.
Pretty good exchange for the Dire there. And you can see Limp picked up a kill on Zai, so that puts him a little bit closer to his Bloodstone. He's still quite a bit behind, though. He's 5th highest net worth. Probably not the Bloodstone timing he's looking for, but he will get it eventually. He's about, I think, 500 gold away now if he just gets the vitality booster, so he'll have that shortly, and compLexity might try to go for a fight after that.
Yeah, Limp farming away on the west side of the map.
Chessie's starting to work on his Radiance. He's about 1.6k gold away. Moo's starting to work on a Force Staff. Swollen Melons doesn't really have anything queued up, but he's just been purchasing wards, so no big items for him. But Z-Freak working on a Blink. Zai's just about completed his Orchid. No, he's actually quite far from his Orchid.
Yeah, Midas setting him back a little. Endeavor, but does have the one Oblivion Staff. So, like you said, about 1700 gold off.
You have the Maelstrom on CCNC now, so that's a pretty good farming item for Sniper, really. Helps him get the farm he needs to accelerate into the late game. Otherwise, you kind of have to use Shrapnel to wave clear, but with Maelstrom, it really changes the way Sniper farms. Pycat's starting to work on a Lincoln Sphere, which should help him against the Rupture and a potential initiation from Storm Spirit. I think the Chronosphere is super important for the Dire this game, just because it's their biggest lockdown for Storm and Bloodseeker. So Pycat's survival in these teamfights will be really important.
Misery, I think the Dire are okay with him dying, and looks like compLexity may be looking for more here. He will be blood righted up and brought down. Shadow Wave to finish him off from the Dazzle.
322 gold for that kill.
Nice. And the tier 2 a little bit vulnerable top lane, but yeah. Still seems rather inconsequential.
Yeah, it's not the worst for the Dire. I mean, it just makes the other 4 heroes more comfortable on the map now that they've seen compLexity's rotation. And so CCNC and PBD are a little bit more comfortable being in the spot lane.
Dual Breath catches Moo bottom lane. For a second, thought about queuing up the Dark Rift there, but he feels...
Pycat's actually set up in the top lane here. Limp will think against hitting that tower, so no kill there. Instead, they get a 2-2 bottom.
What have we here?
Z-Freak is a little bit close to that Blink Dagger, 350 gold away at this point.
Even with the Blink, the initiations for compLexity are a little bit difficult because they have to deal with both the Sniper and the Void. So someone has to jump on top of the Sniper so that CCNC just can't like auto attack the whole fight, and they need to stop the Chrono because Chronosphere is like the Dire's biggest teamfight spell. And so not only do they need that Blink on Rubik, but I think they're gonna need an Orchid on Storm before they can really look to win a 5-on-5 fight.
As long as Pycat's diligent about using that time dilation, it's going to be hard for him to steal the Chrono. But if he does, can pretty much get the entire back line. Kind of reset the fight there.
Dire are also smoked though. I think Dire have the better positioning here unless compLexity just look for Roche, but it'd be a little bit of a crazy Roche attempt since there's so many ways for the Dire to scout. Instead, compLexity, they're looking for a kill, but the Dire, they're actually positioned really well. Yeah, they're not under any ward vision right now, and they're kind of grouped up. You can see like Pycat, CCNC, and Zai are kind of ready to break smokes in really weird locations.
compLexity seemed wary of it. As soon as they saw two heroes in the lane top, the sniper and the Jig hero, they didn't make their way up the stairs to have the low ground disadvantage. And I wanted to chill around near the shrine and hope someone walked over to the east, but
The Dire are coming in to protect this tier 1.
Pycat in middle lane.
There we
Right
go.
thrown out. He's going to jump forward. He catches the chrono on the Radiance Bloodseeker. It's going to be a bit of a difficult kill. The Boulder Smash flies through and connects on the Rubik. Misery. And they end up getting the kill on the Storm Spirit. Dazzle now in trouble. Dark Rift being queued up over to the east, but he can't even save the Dazzle. The Dire take a decisive teamfight win. They end up losing their tower in the mid lane, but Zai's Treants along with the creeps finishing off the tier 2 in the off lane for the Radiant. So 1-for-1 tower trade and a very
This could be Roshan as well.
beneficial team win here. As
Zai
you
has his
mentioned,
Orchid
Roche.
now, so that Orchid's problematic for Limp, and Limp's starting to work on a Yule's first, which will kind of reduce his ability to shut down either the Void or the Storm. I think really... Oh, actually, the compLexity is moving in.
Dazzle in trouble here. They do have vision of him briefly, and over down on the south side, they have been able to pick off the Jakiro. Pycat trying to make his way out. CCNC has Aegis and will now get the Hurricane Pike to pop for him. But he is out in no man's land. Pycat cannot counter-initiate CCNC. He looks dead here. compLexity taking this fight despite the Aegis being picked up by the Dire side, and they will be rewarded for their troubles.
That was a great decision from compLexity, and also like the sniper got caught in a weird position, as did the Jakiro, and Chronosphere was down, so really the Dire didn't have a way to fight that team fight after that, and compLexity, they make they put themselves back into the game, or they keep themselves into the game, because with that Aegis, the Dire could have potentially tried to go for high ground.
Zai playing a little bit tentative in the bot lane, as we're gonna push in mid.
So compLexity, they kind of have to be worried about splitting up just because of that chrono on Lion. PPD looks to go down here.
Stolen time walk for Z-Freak, allowing him to initiate from the low ground there and
Should be a
save
tier
the
2
blink
as well.
if he needed it. Z-Freak will make his way back to base, perhaps to deal with Zai bottom. Tier 2 eliminated a long time ago for the Radiant side, so Zai, nothing really of major significance can be taken by him in the bottom lane. Trying to play around their vision though is the Dire. They've got a ward up on the high ground in both the east and west side of that middle lane. Trying to catch out a Radiant farmer or straggler.
You
Lincoln
can see
Sphere completed
both
on
of
Pycat.
compLexity's wards, or 3 of compLexity's wards are on the Dire side of the map, so the Dire have to be a little bit careful of where they farm, especially if compLexity starts going missing from the map. And
The Freak scouted here by Pycat. Pycat gonna play it safe for now. Misery jumps through, gets a silence off, and the Boulder Smash, and we'll just make it out. But Z-Freak linking to follow it up. No longer has the time walk, has the dual breath at this. Could not chase forward for the Misery Earth Spirit.
but I think yeah, Limp has done his Yules, but at this point I feel like both teams don't want to run headfirst into a team fight, especially with so many items.
Bottom lane. A little bit by his lonesome. They're going to jump forward, catch the Boulder Smash and the Silence. Get the Magnetize off as well. Zai jumping into the fray. Z-Freak. Oh, Limp going to jump in from distance here. Bring Zai very low. Moo is going to drop, but they'll pop the Nature's Prophet almost simultaneously. Limp almost out of mana at this point, and Pycat forced to back out. But CCNC coming in. Chrono still available here. And we'll see Limp back out. Meanwhile, Chessie chasing forward. Top lane looking to find a kill. EPD though, back to safety. He's going to run over some ward vision. See if Chessie makes a move towards him.
You can see Moo was
blood right.
Moo was just tanky enough to buy enough time for his team to come, and although they trade 1-to-1, I think it's more favorable for compLexity because they get the Bloodstone charge and because Zai is higher net worth than the Underlord.
This
So I
ward
think
paying dividends right now for the Radiant side. There's 2 dire sentries near it, but don't actually find it. And it allows Chessie to get out as they bring in a 3-man rotation. And they even scan him here successfully, but he TP'd out before they can get there.
For the twins.
Smoke being broken by CCNC, no gank occurs, and I think both teams are just trying to keep their lanes out, look for pickoffs, just because there's so many items in the pipeworks that need to be completed in order for their team fight to work. The Storm needs his Orchid, the Faceless Void is working on a Shadow Blade, which he should have really soon, so that should help him go for pickoffs and help him deal with just not being spotted in fights, since it's so important for the enemy team to have vision of him. If he has a Shadow Blade, it makes him that much harder to locate in fights. And CNC is working on BKB next, which should make him a lot harder to deal with in fights.
It has the full Mjolnir already, so is the source of damage that his ensure that he stays up in these fights. Misery has a Blink Dagger of his own on the Earth Spirit, certainly not poor, all things considered, as the Dire in the mid lane will smoke up undetected.
Kind of hard. I don't think they have vision of anyone right now.
Yeah, the Dire does have vision.
Usually when you smoke, you want vision of like at least
they
one
have a
priority
ward
target.
here. So.
I mean, they see Moo, but like Moo's the worst target for them to go on. In fact, Moo would be happy if they went on him just because he's so tanky to kill, and it buys so much time for the Storm and Bloodseeker to move in.
They had a high ground ward
for a
here,
second.
the Dire, so they did see Chessie, but pretty much the entire lineup by his side. So walking uphill, you know, not the most mobile lineup, would have been a tough kill. Meanwhile, though, Zai, his Midas has paid off at this point. 2nd overall in the net worth, just been quietly farming the bottom hemisphere of the map, and is on the way to his Maelstrom after picking up the Shadow Blade.
The teamfights are a little bit weird for the Dire because they don't have a frontliner, so they kind of have to catch compLexity in a weird position. Whereas, in order for compLexity's teamfight to work, they just have the Underlord in the front, and then they basically just go from there. Like, Underlord is the vehicle, and then the Storm and the Bloodseeker kind of move in from the back. So, what's going on up here?
Jump forward. Misery is going to get the kickoff, and the silence. Macropyre is there with the Magnetize. They should have enough to kill off Z-Freak, and Wrath of Nature will be what finishes him off, coming through from Zai. Finally, we get some action here.
I mean, it looked like Z-Freak just wanted to steal a spell, but got instantly initiated on by Misery, so a little bit of an interesting event there. And Moose almost done his Guardian Greaves, which should make him that much more tanky and help his team out a little bit as well.
Atos pipe.
Even though the Dire are 5k net worth ahead, you can still see compLexity winning a team fight if the conditions are right.
Yeah, they deal with the sniper, and it feels like there's going to be a bit of a lack of damage. There is still a decent amount of magic damage between the Earth Spirit and the Jakiro for the time being. But there is a BKB up on Chessie already.
It's kind of hard to deal with the Storm as well with the Shallow Grave because there's a risk that you don't actually finish the Storm. He just zips away and then they reset and come back. But it's kind of a slow-paced game.
Indeed, feels more Chinese than it does North American at this point. PPD gonna make it out top lane.
It's not quite Chinese Dota. There's still a lot of movement on the map, right? Like in Chinese Dota, they're just on their side of the map farming. Underlord's actually gonna TP 4 of his heroes down here. See if they try to go for a kill. The only hero down here is Zai, but Zai's kind of in the trees. Don't think they'll find him. I think Zai's kind of aware that there's so many heroes missing on the map. He sees the Firestorm as well, so.
Limp does have a pack of dust on him, but doesn't opt
BKB's
to look into
completed
the
on
tree.
Sniper,
Yep.
and Limp is about halfway to his Orchid. So I think this Roshan fight is pretty much going to be the next big event in this game. I think since both teams kind of want it. compLexity wants it on their Storm, and Dire probably want it on the Sniper. And you don't really want the enemy team to have it either, because it's sort of a win condition at this point. Because both teams are kind of reliant on
Pycat under the cover of Shadowblade, looking for a kill. Ooh, not the ideal target, as we've already mentioned, but Z-Freak is behind him. Oh, only finds the one-man Chrono. Lincoln Sphere is going to be popped nicely by Z-Freak. Ice Path will be there on Tamu still, though. It's a difficult kill, but they are aware that he is pretty much out alone. Z-Freak takes a big chunk of damage from the Assassinate. Now Misery chasing forward. Maybe not all the way into the Shrine. And Limp pops up the regen, makes his way over towards the pit.
That was a good pick off from the Dire, but I don't think it'll result in anything. They can't really take a fight still because of...
Jump forward, Lincoln's pop, they lift him up. Limp goes in onto Pycat. He does have the time walk in just a moment. And Bloodright going to come out now. Pycat will have to dodge it off to the east. It connects onto 2. Rupture is there onto Misery. Chessie, though, taking a lot of right-click damage. And under the duration of his BKB, he will have to turn tail and run. So with the advantageous high ground position there, the Dire do get another kill on the back end.
There's not a lot of damage coming from compLexity, so even when they jumped the Void there, they weren't really able to deliver enough damage to kill him, and instead they just lose the Rubik, and this should be a pretty free Roshan for the Dire. I mean, they don't have Chronosphere, but they'll have it up in 30 seconds, and compLexity aren't quite in a position to contest this yet.
Bloodright will clip Pycat as they make it back up to the Shrine. And reset. They will smoke. Raiden didn't really catch a glimpse of that yet. They see one hero mid. That's going to be CC&C. And he will get grabbed up by the root there. The Weave will be popped offensively. CC&C will BKB up, force forward, and find the Aegis the Immortal. Cheese is going to be picked up as well by PPD. And everyone back up and to the Shrine, now to the north. Looking for Z-Freak. He makes a blink over to the east. Jumping forward is Misery. They both guess that he's on the cliff, but he's actually over by the Shrine. They'll still find him, however, with the Yules. And poor Zachary is going to drop in the mid lane. More importantly, though, Aegis killed by the Dire and taken. The Roche killed by the Dire and Aegis taken by the Dire. Right now, Cheese in the hands of Zai.
Yeah, that was a good smoke by the Dire to go in for that Roshan steal, or not really steal, but finish. And
Misery gonna pop to the Soul Burn. Limp finds himself a Bloodstone charge there.
I think this is where Dire look to take their move. They have Aegis now. They're 8k net worth ahead, and really, as long as they keep their lanes out, there's no potential for compLexity to split push. So,
what'd I miss?
Sniper's probably one of the better heroes when it comes to taking high ground, just because you can hit the tower from so far away.
Back ranges.
For the twins.
compLexity actually have to commit a lot to get to the Sniper. I mean, the Storm can't really solo kill the Sniper at this point, so they have to move the Bloodseeker and the Sniper, or Bloodseeker and the Storm and the Underlord to hit the Sniper, or at least deal damage to the Sniper. But they're walking into a team that has the Chronosphere, so if the Dire positions themselves really well, it's quite difficult for compLexity to initiate, although it's not impossible.
For now, they'll deal with bot lane and they'll convene as a unit towards mid. Zai will throw up his Treant's top to try and shove out the wave. Who will try and address that and at least have one wave pushing in towards the Dire. But as you said, now seems as good a time as any for the Dire to make a move.
And compLexity, all they can do is sort of like
Pycat potentially looking to cancel TPs here top lane under the cover of Shadowblade.
He's gonna walk through a sentry, I think.
Jumps forward. He's gonna find the nice BKB though from Chessie, and he has a lot of backup behind, so it's essentially gonna be a wasted Chrono. But BKB is down, and Misery looking to chase for more. Gets the silence off and will find the Bloodseeker as he jumps forward. Now Limp, though, looking to counter-initiate. Zai coming through, has the Orchid, will pop it onto Z-Freak's Rubik. They do find the Nature's Prophet, or they do find the Air Spirit, though. Nature's Prophet getting low. He's able to cheese up. Limp bouncing out and is time dilated, so they should be able to chase him down, too. Shrapnel flying out. Still looking for this Storm Spirit, and he's trying to TP out. PPD will guess wrong. Limp does make it away. Still, though, 2 for 1 in the top lane. But almost space created for the complexity side. I mean, this Aegis expires in 2 minutes from now. And the respawn timers, well, they may be able to force a Bloodseeker buyback, but they are relative.
I don't think anything will happen in the next 40 seconds, so it's a pretty cool decision from the Dire to go there. I mean, even with Chronosphere expended, they're like 9k net worth ahead, so...
Kyle in trouble, Orchid it up. This may be the opening they need to actually crack high ground. 50 minutes down is the Dazzle, no buyback available.
I mean, the Dire can afford to play like this because there's nothing the Sniper and the Void really have to be afraid of. There's not enough Disable, not enough damage on Complexity's lineup. Or it's not really bursty enough to deal with these two heroes, so...
He's rooted up again. Gets pulled back, though, by the Misery Earth Spirit? Was that, what the hell was that? He doesn't have eggs. Alright, weirdest looking Force Staff I've ever seen. Running around, though, he's going to be broken, is the Bloodseeker. And will be forced to pop BKB. Sprouted up, though. Shades of Arteezy on the Sven there. Caught out of the base. Brought down. He does have a buyback available. CCNC has his BKB, but still, there's Aegis on this squad. They will regenerate the Jakiro with an Urn Tick and get back to work on this tier 3. Rod of Atos thrown out onto CCNC. The stolen Shrapnel, that's going to hurt a bit. A little bit of his own medicine there. Zai has an Orchid up. Doesn't really want to use it on the Underlord. Will get the Silver Edge off, and a huge Chrono from Pycat. It's going to catch 3. The Boulder Smash comes through. They need more damage, though. CCNC, he's been dealt with thus far by the Storm Spirit. Pycat will get 2 kills during the Chrono. Limp will clean him up, however. And a beautiful play by Limp, despite such a great Chrono from Pycat. Able to deal with the CCNC Sniper.
Oh!
And for that reason, they don't get enough done with it. Tier 3 still, if only by a sliver of health, barely standing in the mid lane.
And there's a lot of chip damage from Firestorm, and then from the Shrapnel managed to take down CCNC, but that was a buyback from Chessie. So the Dire aren't exactly sad about that situation, but the tier 3 not going down is probably a big deal for them, especially since it costed an Aegis and one of their cores.
Top lane, Chessie showing. No support inbound for Zai here.
Zai's working on BKB, which should help him do some right-click damage in fights without having to worry about too much. And Chessie's starting to pick up a little bit of farm, especially clearing these waves in the top lane. I think the Dire haven't really wanted to move onto that side of the map to gank, especially since there's really no vision there, and Complexity have all the vision in the Dire's jungle. So any movement that the Dire make here is being spotted out by that ward.
With me.
Smoke
Zai gonna address the push bot lane, and yeah, smoke from the rest of his unit.
Do they have vision?
Illusion.
Pycat is going to grab the illusion rune, but the Dire are playing, or the Radiant are playing almost completely blind. Chessie just in the nick of time going to be able to make it down to the south. Jumping forward, though, Misery is going to find him with the stun. They don't have the follow-up just yet. Ice Path connects, but he gets the BKB off. It's going to be a solo Chrono for the Bloodseeker. Well worth it, as he does not have buyback. Expended it last fight. Now they're going to jump forward looking for more. They find the Rubik Moo. A little bit caught out in no man's land. Ice Path is going to be there. They get the Boulder Smash off as well. Liquid Fire is going to be there. He's too tanky at this point. Limp jumps forward, gets the Yule Scepter off onto the Faceless Void, trying desperately to find a kill under the duration of his BKB, but he's being bashed up by Pycat and forced back. The Shallow Grave will keep him alive, but that tier 3 can't say the same. And from the low ground, CCNC beginning to beat on the melee racks. Everyone trying to heal up using the Urn charges for the Dire side. 2 heroes still down, neither of which have buyback for compLexity. Sides in forward. Big ball lightning coming out from Limp. He's down into the ice path though, and CCNC beating into him. Pycat going to contribute as well. Again, another beautiful grave from Swindles is going to keep him alive, but he gets bashed trying to ball out. He will be able to do it on second attempt, but that is enough of a window for this Melee Rax to drop, and it indeed will, as the siege creep finishes it off. Now everyone from the Dire trying to extract himself. PPD, the only unlucky one, unable to do so. Well, I say only, and Limp finds another. That's going to be Pycat's Void. Now looking for more. Misery up to the high ground. Tranquil Boost kicking in. TP in just a second, and see you later.
I mean, the Dire, they get a Rax there. They lose 2 heroes, though. So compLexity not out of the game yet.
Yeah, great defense considering that the Bloodseeker went down so early and present for any of them.
That was a really cool decision from the Dire to really jump him there, expend the Chrono knowing that he didn't have buyout, and they managed to start that fight on good foot. I mean, Storm by himself doesn't have enough damage to deal with the cores on the Dire, so if you take out one of the two, then suddenly your team fight becomes a lot easier because Dazzle and Rubik as supports don't really provide damage, and Underlord doesn't really provide burst damage, so really, the team fights get really easy after one of these cores go down.
Limp's gonna put in some punishment, get some value out of this double damage rune. It's tier 2 mid. It looks like they will actually secure it. Got 19 Bloodstone charges at this point, so nothing to scoff at. He's been able to stay alive in these fights by virtue of Fuels, BKB, as well as the Dazzle groups.
I mean, Zai's starting to work on a Bloodthorn as well, which should add a lot of damage to his team. Especially since, actually Limp does have a BKB, so... Well, when those BKBs go down, the Bloodthorn's gonna do a ton of damage. I think Roshan's probably the next big objective for both teams as they go for a pause. And CCNC almost completed with a Satanic, so that should make him a lot harder to kill in these fights. Especially since there's so many ways on the Dire to save him. You have the Chronosphere, and then when the BKBs are down, you have stuns from Jakiro or Earth Spirit. So that should help him a lot in these fights, especially since a lot of compLexity's, a lot of their team fight plans so far, as far as I can see, is just making sure they get on top of the sniper and burst him.
Going to be a little bit harder to burst him now that he does have that Satanic, or in 50 gold at least if he forgoes buyback.
Jesse's has completed a Manta. He's working on a Blade Bell next. Mu has a Shiva's. And Pycat is working on a BKB next, I believe. Yes. There's a gem picked up by compLexity, so they're gonna try to do as much de-warding as possible. They break their own smoke, hitting that ward after smoking on top of the ward, so that's a wasted smoke. I'm sure the Dire has spotted that, and they're playing on their top of the map in pretty safe positions. Roshan slotted to respawn in about 30 seconds. That should be the next big objective. So both teams are going to want to de-ward and get their own vision around ward, just around Roshan, just to make the fight as easy as possible. Since Storm with an Aegis is extremely difficult for Dire to deal with, since Chrono's like the main way they actually lock down the Storm, especially if the Storm has BKB. So if the Storm has an Aegis, it's sort of a big deal for compLexity, and vice versa for the Sniper having Aegis.
Arcane Rune up on Pycat. Doesn't have a TP, so it's going to be hard for them to set up bot lane.
They're actually getting ready to smoke. They have a smoke coming up on PPD.
Roche did just spawn. compLexity perhaps reading that the Dire may be in the pit here and taking a little bit of a jog up towards the high ground, but they'll think better of it. Zai shows top lane briefly. We'll push this in. See if he'll garner a reaction from the opponent.
Now Limp's starting to work on an Aghanim Scepter, which should give his team a little bit more of a AoE lockdown. So we'll see if he gets a sick Electric Vortex with that. But both teams know that Roshan's up. So I think the lanes are sort of in Dire's favor right now. Top's pushed in really hard. Mid's gonna naturally push in.
Bottom lane, shrapnel thrown out. So compLexity should be well aware that this smoke is happening. They'll bait Moo-ish, knowing yet he is a difficult kill. But the Dire will not bite. Zai dealing with top lane. In the meantime, he's gone for
So smoke's a little bit,
Treants.
I guess, non-productive. They're using it to get in the pit, but in order for Pycat to initiate on compLexity, he needs vision of either the Bloodseeker and the Storm, and both of those heroes are kind of positioned in the back right now, and they have a gem up on the Storm, so there's really no ward vision that the Dire can place in that area, unless they place it ahead of time.
Pycat just hanging around on the low ground, but
Hey,
nobody will take the bait.
I mean, the Dire are okay with this because they have a Nature's Prophet to push out bottom lane, top lane's pushing in, so eventually if both of them just dance around Roshan, the Dire will get more out of it. They'll get tower damage in bottom and top.
Assassinate gonna tickle the Underlord mid.
Tickle. I think it does like 200 damage to him at this point. There's a halberd on Moo, so super tanky on this Underlord, and a little bit of utility as well with Shiva's and Heaven's Halberd.
175 experience for Pycat away from that massive time walk cast range, if that's what he wants to go. 20% evasion possibility as
That's
well.
actually setting up for a kill here.
Yeah, finds the Underlord. They will get the Orchid off onto him. Chrono is there as well. Pop the BKB on Zai. Grave, though, comes through. And now in the backlines, Limp looking to take out CCNC. He's got the Satanic activated, though, and he's right back up to full health. Looks like Moo will be able to make it out, and he actually pulls Limp back with him. So when all is said and done, everything expended for both sides, and one Rubik dead.
Oh. Poor Z-Frig. But I mean, I think this opens up Roshan for the Dire. Even if they don't have Chronosphere, as BKB is expended on both the Bloodseeker and Storm, but it looks like they think against it. Probably just looking to reset, wait for that next Chronosphere. I mean, they would have got the Underlord if not for the Grave, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Well played by compLexity. They only lose a Rubik, so not a big deal for them.
Treants working on this bottom shrine slowly but surely. May just get the job done here.
Looks like we have another 15-minute game. 50 plus minutes. DD on killing upon CCNC though.
Ah, the 48-minute
Not
Roshan double damage.
Yeah,
Feels good,
it's
man.
great, but compLexity are kind of in a position to go and figure this out, right?
Rolling forward is Misery. Limp gonna jump through. He gets the two-man Aghanim Scepter Electric Vortex, but there's no follow-up just yet. CCNC immediately pops the Satanic, gets the BKB off. He's working on the Roche, trying to get this Aegis. Chessie jumps through, and CCNC will secure the Aegis of the Immortal. Gets lifted into the air, does Pycat, and he needs to get out. He will be able to time walk to the east. Chessie forced to run away here. CCNC still standing his ground, but Moo so tanky. Static Charge and the Force back will try and keep CCNC safe, but he does end up dropping Pycat near the shrine. All the heroes of the Dire are in dire straits at this moment. Pycat, he's going to drop here. CCNC does not have the Satanic active available for another 3 seconds. He's going to drop as well. It's going to be a dieback or a buyback from Pycat, but he can't get back into the fray. Meanwhile, though, bottom lane, Zai ratting it up. Moo looking to Dark Rift in towards bottom. And Pycat does have a Chrono. Maybe wants to expend it here. Finds Limp as well as the Rubik here, but the Dazzle is nearby with the Grave at the ready. Glimmer Cape is there to keep the Storm Spirit safe. Meanwhile, Zai finds Limp. Limp is out of mana here. Dust Pop to try and slow him down. Shallow Grave is there. Ice Path doesn't connect. It's actually a stolen Ice Path from Z-Freak. Will keep them at bay. Pycat does end up getting the Dazzle, and now they're going to find Z-Freak, Orchided up, stuck. He's going to be blinking down to the low ground, and they won't be able to follow him. And chaos ensues across the map. Really, all Zai gets done is that range racks bottom. And
He also
they do lose
expends the
the
buyback,
Aegis.
so he's not going to have that for a while. And I think that fight worked out well for compLexity. They
Very
kind of
well.
caught the it was kind of crazy for the Dire to go for that in the first place. I think, especially with compLexity ready to fight already, and I don't think they had Chrono at the start of the fight, so they really couldn't burst either the Storm or the Bloodseeker, and then those two heroes got in a position to sort of kill everyone on the Dire, and as a result, CCNC couldn't do anything with the Aegis because there was already like 3 heroes piled up on top of him. So really well played by compLexity.
Massive swing. They even get the cheese, and they're gonna put it on Limp. It's 4 buybacks expended from the Dire side, none from the Radiant. Only CCNC, the one without buyback on cooldown. So net worth going to take a massive dive back down towards almost 0. Experience the same.
I mean,
Still, though, fighting into a void sniper high ground, even after a fight like that, is never going to be easy. Although Limp, he has shown the ability to get to the backlines in these last few fights.
so Zai wants to split push, but Limp's actually in a position to solo kill him now if they figure out that he's here. You might actually zip for him. Good.
Glimmer cape onto Swindles, drops down a ward, trying to find someone. No detection here though, so Misery will go by unnoticed.
And Zai's got that remove teleport cooldown now, which should make it easier for him to split push, and a bunch of these level 25s popping up actually. CNC's got his shrapnel charges. Plycat has his evasion talent. And Storm's got the electric vortex duration. Underlord's got plus 50 health regen on Earth.
The Plycat does opt for the 20% evasion.
And it helps him because sort of the way he loses team fights, it's as if he gets bursted. So that little bit of evasion should help him. But you know, the timeout cast range is quite good, especially when you're the initiator for your team. But evasion's quite good as well.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know Underlord had a. I forgot Underlord had a plus 50 health regen talent.
Pretty nasty.
Yeah.
They tried to kill him off in that Chronosphere mid lane a couple
I feel
fights
like
ago.
the Pit of Malice route is also very good though.
Yes. Especially against the Faceless Void. However, I mean, there are some BKBs on the field.
Oh, dude, Chelsea's got that blood right cooldown. That thing is a meme. Especially when you get an Octarine core, you're just casting them every 4 seconds or whatever.
Zip. Zap.
I think Dire are kind of, they have to be careful here. They're missing a lot of buyouts, and
Over here now.
really compLexity have a lot easier of a time initiating right now because they have a storm, and because it's so difficult for the Dire to fight through the Underlord.
Monstrous waves pushing in top and bottom, and that is going to force the entire lineup of compLexity back. But hey, free money.
And Zai's doing a really good job of keeping the lanes out safely. He's making sure he's not getting caught by the storm.
The seeds of fortune.
Really, I think that Dire are just stalling time until the buyouts and until next Roshan.
Hands off keyboard it is then. Have a stretch Twitch chat.
Root and after them.
Really does feel like since Limp has had, you know, near free reign in these fights, that CCNC's net worth and damage, his impact hasn't been felt nearly as much as it was toward the mid game.
Yeah, Plycat also isn't really in a position to solo kill anyone. The Underlord's too tanky. The Dazzle pick was great by Swindlemelons actually. It makes it impossible, or makes it harder for Plycat to kill anyone in these Chronospheres. So even with the Chronospheres we saw in the last couple of fights, they haven't really been able to kill anyone. I mean, the Underlord's way too tanky. If you brave the storm, he just gets to zip out after the Chronospheres. So I think team fights are getting a little bit tricky for the Dire, especially since they don't have like something like a Hax or or Abyssal, since they are reliant on that Chronosphere.
Invisibility.
Minimum spawn for Roche is 1.5 minutes from now. That'll be certainly a point of focus here for both sides.
The buyouts will be ready for the Dire in about 2 minutes. I think all their buyouts are around 1.5 minutes right now. So.
Yep. Only Zai is sitting at 2 minutes, about 30 seconds ahead of the rest of his squad.
It's just that kind of game where you're waiting for buyouts, waiting for Roche. They should, as the game progresses, they should accelerate the Roshan spawn, so they start spawning every 10 seconds.
Hey, how about a fight
way,
with
you know,
14 cheeses? That'll be fun for the
five
casters.
APCs, 14 cheeses. You can start selling cheeses. It'll be like a RPG game. You're just farming the boss over and over again.
Only you could buy extra backpack slots.
Gotta get that level 3 backpack.
And again, ring around the rosy. We'll pull back the at least the Underlord here. Though Moo is pretty good at cleaning these waves up himself and can Dark Rift, excuse me, back into the fight. So.
I mean, Firestorm's like insane for
Good
wave
jam.
clearing.
Sitting
Level
on
4
the floor.
Firestorm just clears waves on its own. Might be an initiation happening mid.
Radiant Vision doesn't see any Dire heroes. Dire Vision, Radiant heroes aside from Underlord.
We just see this complete reversal, right? Now compLexity have all the map control. The Dire have to be the ones playing safe. So as a result, you see they just slowly got outfarmed in the last 5 minutes since that last big fight. So really, compLexity, they're gonna start getting more and more items on their cores, and the Dire they're just stagnated for a bit, but for good reason.
Zai sitting on the value dust here, 57 minutes into the game.
For real. I think they need a gem, actually. They do have a gem. The gem's on. I think the dust is important because there's glimmer capes on both Zefrig and Swimmingons. And compLexity, they're starting to get working on Roche. I wonder if the Dire will react. They start smoking. They're gonna have to scout it out with shrapnel, but it might be too late. Roshan's already half
It
health.
certainly will. They're making the wrong direction move anyways. As Zai TP's down to the bottom lane.
Immortality is mine.
BPD called it.
Roshan. He takes the clock timer, which you can't see, and then he types Roshan, so you know the timer's associated with Roshan. But you know that puts the Dire on the retreat. They pretty much have to defend high ground with their sniper at this point, which you know sniper's one of the best heroes at defending high ground with what is it? About 1,100 range. He has to TP back though. And he's actually TPing back alone. He's gonna be the only one here, so there's actually a short time period where
Lycat will be here with him. He's gonna force out of the blood, right? It's got the positive Lincoln Sphere buff on him as well. Zai TPing back.
How does anyone actually end the game? This game with the enemy team being alive? I think we're gonna be here for a while.
We have another best of 3 after this run. So I've been up since 7:30. Please throw someone. 59 minutes in, 32 to 25. And yeah, pushing into sniper high ground, never an easy feat. Pushing into a storm spirit high ground, equally difficult. Aegis or not. Limp does have the extra life on him. Anyone have any moon shards yet? Butterfly completed up by CCNC. Oh, Limp. Over on this.
Are the Dire in vision actually? No, they are not.
They are not.
compLexity don't know.
Either side is in vision of one another.
25
Seafreak
bloodstone
showing.
charges on Storm. And this is what happens when you don't end the game against Storm. He just comes back. Even though Limp had such a rough start, his team was able to make so much space for him, and then they were able to take good team fights. Pycat's actually moving in here, looking for a pick off.
Dwindles has a gem and the obs ward, so wisely so. Pycat able to back. Zai TPing in top lane. Just gonna cut this wave.
Invisibility.
Removed teleportation cooldown kicking in.
OS Rug. Feels like one of the more useful, yet one of the least kind of glaringly OP level 25 talents.
And OP specifically on a hero that's so good at split pushing on a hero that kind of like farms up so quickly. So Z-Freak actually might find him here. They know he's here because they saw the Mjolnir.
He has a gem as well.
There you
BKB
go.
though on Zai. He has that dust. Alright, Zai's just going to pop here more than likely. Tries for the TP out, but will drop. 120 seconds on the sidelines. Does have buyback, however.
Well, at least the lanes are sort of out for him. The only lane they have to be worried about right now is bottom, since there's 5 heroes down there. And it's actually a little bit difficult for Dire to take a fight, especially when there's this ward on the ramp. But even though Zai's down, doesn't look like compLexity want to push quite yet. They're gonna push out mid. The creeps are gonna get shrapnelled, and then they're gonna realize, hey, how do we actually do this? The sniper is very farmed. 6 slotted, quite literally. He doesn't even have his boot slot anymore, so ready to do tons of damage if anyone comes up to hit this tower.
Feels more natural when you fight barefoot. Limp though, he's going to jump forward and start this thing off. Gets a 2-man pull, and they'll get the silence to follow up. Yules from PPD, CCNC. He pops up the Satanic and starts the fight, but they do get the Jakiro. Instant buyback from PPD. They start working on the towers. Chessie still running pretty rampant through this base as Misery is a bit low. Zai yet to buy back. They lose the tier 3 here momentarily. Boulder Smash through is going to stun up Limp briefly, and again, just Underlord in the front lines. Jump forward, Limp is going to find the pull onto CCNC, and jump forward, Chrono is going to be on Chessie. Do they have the follow-up damage, though? Pycat does absolutely nothing to this Bloodseeker, and now he's going to chase forward with the Thirst Stacks. Pycat pops the BKB. They do get Misery down. He'll buy back instantly. Zai still withholding his for 20 seconds. Chessie caught up by the Ice Path. Do they have enough to bring him down? They do not. Rod of Atos will keep CCNC from pressing forward. Dark Rift is there now. A jump. Misery can't kick anyone out. And they will get the racks here. 62 minutes in. Certainly a lane of racks, not too much to write home about for compLexity's side. But a base breached is a base breached.
And it's starting to feel like Dire don't actually have enough damage to do anything about this push. I mean, Pycat landed a Chrono on 2 heroes. He was hitting the Bloodseeker the whole time, but Bloodseeker's got the Radiance and Butterfly for the evasion, so Pycat was missing like almost half of his hits and wasn't actually able to kill anyone that fight. I mean, no one on the Dire were able to kill anyone that fight, so I think something's got to change in the next team fight. Maybe they have to do a little bit more focus firing, or make sure that Zai's actually up to use that Bloodthorn and
jump forward. They are going to find the Void for Pycat. Does he get the BKB off in time? He will not. Limp finishes him off, taking a lot of damage from the sniper, but actually pops a regen out of his bottle, and he'll be in fighting shape once again. Forced back onto CCNC. Misery, this is a dieback. If he goes down here, he's going to have to defensively Yules himself. Limp is almost out of mana, though, and he is forced to zip down to the low ground. Resetting is the compLexity lineup. 100 seconds on the sideline for Pycat, and he has a Chrono in 5 and a buyback available. We'll have that combination. Tier 3 goes down mid lane. Jump forward from Z-Freak, trying to steal a spell. Won't get much of consequence. Gets the Ice Path. Silence is out there on to CCNC, but they can't follow up. As the Pycat buyback comes out, they immediately extract themselves from the mid lane. Resetting, maybe for looking for someone to overstep the base. Now back in they'll go. Still ready to fight. Just feels like without getting a good jump here, the Dire are just slowly hemorrhaging. Limp always finding the right initiation for his squad. Pycat almost never able to get the right target, which basically is that Storm Spirit to allow CCNC to do damage.
Yep.
Limp gonna pop his BKB by accident.
Whoa, what'd I miss?
Or maybe for safe measure. Up to the high ground he'll go. There's no Storm Spirit here mid lane if they can find an opening. Jump forward for Misery. He doesn't get anyone. Moves in the front lines and more than happy to be. Rupture comes out on Misery. Now the Storm Spirits join the fray again. He He locks down Pycat, orchids him up on the west side. In the meantime, they take out Misery and the Jakiro. CCNC trying to stand strong, but he's all by his lonesome. Chronosphere is going to catch the sniper too. He's going to end up dying. Pycat, he'll be short to fall here soon. Tries to take out Z-Freak in the meantime. Limp going to zip forward and find him and bring down the Void. CCNC pretty much the last one left standing alongside Zai's Nature's Prophet, but it's a triple kill for Chessie and likely the end of the run for the Dire here in the ESL One Hamburg qualifiers. Jumping forward though, finding the Dazzle is Zai. He needs to pick up a gem here to get the vision, but Kyle makes it up to the high ground, and the good game is called here by PPD's squad. compLexity outlasting them in this game 3, Franz.
Well, I mean, the Dire had a really good start. I mean, they were ahead for so much of the game, but then that one Roshan fight where they lost like 4 buybacks and a lot more than that really like turned the game for compLexity. And I think from there, compLexity were just, their heroes just operated a lot better at that stage in the game, and the sniper and the Void weren't able to provide enough damage to really win these team fights. So compLexity takes it.
Well played by them all throughout the series, and unfortunately for the Dire, their run will end here. Still one more series to go in the North American division here. It's going to be DC North America. The MMR assassin Bulba and his crew up against Blue Pikachu. All 5 players of which do not have Liquipedia pages. So we'll see how one-sided this matchup ends up being, if at all, or if Blue Pikachu can pick up the upset here. But for now, sayonara to Team Dire, and congratulations to compLexity. They'll go on to face Evil Geniuses tomorrow and see if they can carry their momentum from the last week or so, where they've been rather successful up against widely considered the top team in NA. For now, MRP and Franz, we're going to take a little break, and coming up soon will be that DC versus Blue Pikachu match. Thank you guys for joining, and stick around.